My fiancé sent a text saying, "I'm staying at my ex's for a few days to think things over." I replied, "Don't make it awkward." I told her to take all the time she needed, then sent her belongings to her mom's and disconnected her phone line, which I had been covering. 4 days later, she arrived at our building with her bags. The doorman informed her she no longer lived there. She's been trying to reach me from her mom's phone, pleading for a conversation. I never thought I'd be the one to write a post like this. Life has a way of surprising you. 2 weeks ago, my fiancée Melody texted me that she was staying at Dominic's, her college ex, to clear her mind. She had reassured me he was part of her past when I discovered their text exchanges 6 months into our relationship. He still commented on all her Instagram posts and even showed up at the same industry conference as her last year. I stared at that message for 5 minutes. We had been together for 3 years, engaged for 8 months, with wedding deposits made, and she was at her ex's place to think. I texted her back, "Take all the time you need," then got to work. First, I'm a systems analyst, which means I identify weaknesses, plan for problems, and implement solutions. I don't show my emotions, I respond strategically. Secondly, we weren't just romantically involved, we were financially and logistically intertwined, which Melody seemed to overlook. Within 24 hours, I contacted our building management to remove her from the authorized resident list since the lease was in my name. She hadn't signed the addendum despite living there for nearly 2 years. Next, I suspended her access to the building's amenities, all under my membership. I canceled the extra line on my phone plan that I had been paying for since her phone broke 6 months ago. I also transferred her share of our joint savings back to her personal account. We had separate accounts for situations like this. Finally, I packed her belongings, clothes, jewelry, makeup, and electronics that were hers and sent them to her mom's with a simple note, "These belong to Melody. Please make sure she gets them." I also notified our wedding venue and other vendors about a postponement, as I had included cancellation clauses in our agreements. I didn't get angry or send accusatory messages, I just calmly dismantled our lives. The next day, her mother called, confused. "Melody's things just arrived here. Is everything all right?" I explained that Melody was staying at her ex's to clear her head, and I was giving her space. Apparently, she hadn't told her family about this arrangement. 4 days later, while I was working from home, the doorman Marcus called me. "There's a Melody Winters here insisting she lives in your unit. She's not on the resident list anymore, and her access card isn't working." I instructed him not to let her up. 20 minutes later, my work phone rang with numbers I didn't recognize. I let them go to voicemail. The first was Melody, her voice shaky. "What's going on, James? I came home, and they wouldn't let me in. My key doesn't work, and my phone's disconnected. Call me back immediately." I didn't. The next voicemail said, "This isn't funny anymore. Where's all my stuff? Why can't I get into our apartment?" The third was from her mother, "James, please. I made a mistake. Can we just talk?" Again, I didn't respond. After finishing my workday, I went to the gym in our building and made myself a quiet dinner. Then I sent one text to her mother, "Melody, I acknowledge your calls. To be clear, there is no our apartment, the lease is only in my name. I cancelled the additional line I was paying for. There is no our wedding, I've postponed everything. You chose to stay with your ex, consider it cleared, along with your belongings, which were sent to your mother's house 4 days ago. If anything is missing, let me know, and I'll check." That opened the floodgates. I received calls from her friends, her sister, and eventually her father, a man I respected. He sounded drained. "James, can I come by tomorrow to talk?" "Just me." I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop. When we sat down, he looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Melody claims you overreacted," he began, saying she was just friends with Dominic and needed space to think about the wedding. I nodded and placed my phone on the table between us. I don't usually record conversations, but I had been keeping notes when things felt off. I played the audio from 3 weeks earlier of Melody talking to Dominic, unaware I could hear. "I don't know, Dom. Yes, we're still engaged. No, I haven't told him yet. It's complicated. I need more time." Her father's expression fell. I added, "There's more, but I think that covers the basics." He rubbed his eyes. "Her mother and I raised her better than this." I agreed. We sat in silence before he asked, "What happens now?" I replied, "Now nothing. It's over. The relationship ended when she chose to stay with her ex. Everything else is just paperwork." It's been 10 days since that coffee meeting. During this time, Melody's story has changed significantly. First, she just needed space, and I maliciously locked her out and took her things. Then, she claimed she was confused about the wedding, and Dominic was just a friend. Next, I was controlling and suspicious, and she turned to an old friend for support. The latest version is that she made one mistake and I'm punishing her too harshly. None of these acknowledge the recorded call or the fact that she took an overnight bag to her ex's or that she didn't contact me during the 4 days until she found herself locked out. The final twist came yesterday. Dominic's girlfriend, yes, he has one, messaged me on Instagram. He had told her he was helping a friend with pre-wedding nerves. She found texts on his phone indicating it was more than just friendly support. Now she's out of his apartment too. So here we are, two women who thought they were in serious relationships, both locked out of apartments they never put their names on, discovering the consequences of building their living situations on assumptions instead of agreements. I've blocked Melody on all platforms except email, which I check weekly. Her belongings are still with her mother. The wedding deposits are mostly refundable, and I'll return her share once everything is settled. Am I cold for handling it this way? Maybe. But what's colder than texting your fiancé that you're staying at your ex's like it's a casual trip to the store? Some people need dramatic confrontations and tearful closure. I just need clear boundaries. She sent a text, and I took it at face value. End of story. Update 3 weeks later. Thanks for all the comments and messages. I read them all, even if I couldn't reply to each one. Quick update on the ring. Yes, I got it back indirectly. After my coffee with her father, he had a long talk with Melody and her mother. The next day, I received a package containing the engagement ring, which belonged to my grandmother, along with a note from her father saying, "This should be returned to your family." Classy. Regarding legal concerns, some warned about tenant rights since Melody had lived in the apartment for nearly 2 years. I consulted a lawyer before taking action. In our state, without her name on the lease and without proof of paying rent directly, her legal claim was minimal. I documented everything and kept all text exchanges in case it became an issue, but it hasn't. As for the recording, some mentioned it might be illegal depending on the state. To clarify, our apartment has thin walls, and I overheard her conversation when I came home early from a work event. I made detailed notes immediately afterward. It's a habit from my job to document system vulnerabilities, not an actual audio recording. According to mutual friends, who mostly sided with me after hearing the full story, she's still at her parents' house. Dominic apparently tried to reconcile with his girlfriend instead of offering Melody a place to stay. Interesting how quickly priorities change when consequences arise. The venue was surprisingly understanding. They've seen this situation before, and most vendors return deposits minus reasonable fees. I calculated Melody's share of the refunds and will transfer that amount to her personal account once everything is processed. Business is business. The most unexpected development? Melody's younger sister reached out to apologize for her initial angry calls. She said she was embarrassed by her sister's actions and wanted me to know not everyone in their family condones what happened. We had a good relationship, and I appreciated the gesture. Many have asked if I've spoken directly to Melody since everything occurred. The answer is no. Her weekly emails have changed from angry to bargaining to reflective and finally to apologetic. I read them but haven't replied. What would be the point? Her latest message said, "I never actually did anything with Dominic. I just needed to figure out if what we had was real." Even if that's true, who texts their fiancé they're staying at an ex's house to clear their head? That alone was a deal breaker. The rest was just executing necessary updates after a critical failure. Edit, just logged in to find hundreds of new comments and messages. Thank you for the overwhelming support. A few clarifications for those calling me cold or robotic. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Melody showed me exactly who she was with that text. Everything after was just processing the information efficiently. There were small signs, but nothing concrete until that overheard call 3 weeks before her text. I'm not naturally suspicious, I'm observant. Regarding her belongings, I've been accused of stealing or holding her things hostage. To be clear, everything that was hers was packed carefully and delivered to her family home. Shared items remain where they are. She can provide a list of anything she believes is missing, and I'll address each item reasonably. For those wondering why I didn't fight for the relationship, what would I be fighting for? The privilege of wondering where my wife is whenever she needs to clear her head? That's not a relationship, it's surveillance. Some have asked if I regret ending things over one mistake. But it wasn't just one mistake, the mistake was sending the text. The decision was to go to her ex's place. The betrayal was whatever happened there, and the character flaw was thinking this was acceptable behavior during an engagement. I don't see this as revenge, I see it as a rational response to new information. System analysts don't do revenge, we find solutions.